Well, welcome to This is the Way, a new leadership creed for InfoSec professionals. My name is Kate Collins, and I'm really glad to see you guys here today. It's been a great conference so far. You guys enjoying yourselves? Yeah, right? Pretty good. I'm happy also to be back doing this in person. It was just 2 years ago, right? Conferences were canceled completely or just online. So this one feels pretty good. So beyond canceled conferences, right, we went through a lot in the last 3 years, and I don't know that any of us have really stopped for a minute to think about that, because we just kind of got up and kept going. I mean, we have been through so much. A global pandemic, lockdowns, the great toilet paper shortage of 2020, and we're still dealing with those supply chain issues today. If that wasn't enough, we experienced the murder of George Floyd and the resulting social unrest, emotionally charged political events and an election, the resulting peaceful and violent protests. Add to that market volatility, inflation, a war in Ukraine. It's almost surreal, right? It's overwhelming. So through all of this, guess what didn't stop? Cyber threats, right? If you take a look at those astounding numbers from 2019 to 2020, the percentages blew my mind when I was doing some of the research on this. And I know you guys have had to learn a lot to stay ahead of incidents during 2020 and 2021. And since then, you're still continuing to see a wide variety of attacks from all types of threat actors, government-sponsored to insiders. So lightsabers, jetpacks, Beskar armor really couldn't have helped us that much in these last few years. But one thing helped me stay sane. Oh, right. Baby Yoda and escaping into the Star Wars universe brought some comfort, for sure. I'm a big nerd at heart. Maybe not a cyber nerd, like some of you may be, but a human experience and leadership skill nerd, for sure. When I was watching this show to disconnect, I couldn't help but see so many important lessons for professionals, though. So it seemed natural to weave together the Mandalorian with what I was seeing as really important new skills or new ways of looking at leadership skills to be successful as a cyber professional. And this is really, we're in a new world. Things have really shifted as a result of all the things that happened. Where and how we work, what our priorities are, what many of us like and don't like about our jobs or our school path. Some of you may have even made changes in those things over the last few years. So as this new world was taking shape, there were a few other things that got me through the pandemic and have helped me adjust to this different world. There they are, some of my biggest sanity savers right there on the screen. This is actually really intended to be proof that I am a legit Star Wars fan, okay? Maybe not as versed as my husband, but a fan nonetheless. So over 10 years ago, I met my husband. He's a cyber professional and an all-around awesome person. Jason Wan, for those of you who may have seen him yesterday, he spoke. But I fell for him, and I also fell for cyber around that time. From common criteria to threat intelligence to his new role as a cyber action officer, I asked him tons of questions, and he's been great. He sends me different resources, I've been reading a lot, and really helping me learn a lot about the industry. So we also created a little human, and we're raising her right. She was immediately introduced to the Star Wars universe and embraces it sometimes. We also have 4 fur children that I have to mention because we laughed realizing that the newest edition looks either like a Wookiee or an Ewok, depending on her haircut. But I swear, that was just a coincidence. One last note, I love RVA. I went to school at VCU for undergrad and graduate school. I bartended in the Fan and the Bottom and the West End for about 6 years. And I even taught at Huguenot High School. So it's great to be here today for any of you who are from this area. Glad to be back in the city. So I actually do have some qualifications too that brought me up onto the stage. I think most importantly is that 29 years or so of serving in leadership roles. So I've been a team lead, a supervisor, all the way up to a CHRO. I have tons of certifications. I'm not listing them all, but I have a lot of experience in adult learning, workplace psychology, and operational efficiency. So just before the pandemic began, I started my own business, Brightpoint Coaching and Consulting. And for those of you Richmonders here, I named my business before John Tyler decided to change their name. Anybody know about that? Boo, I was so upset. It's a great name though. So since launching my business, I've been honored to work with clients in a variety of industries to provide human resources solutions, design and deliver custom leadership development, and I serve as a credentialed executive coach. My cyber experience includes running leadership development for GuidePoint Security. They're right out here, so stop by and see the really cool team that's here today if you have not already. And I'm also an executive and career coach for numerous cyber professionals. If you don't know what coaching is, think your sports players, your actresses, your singers. They all have coaches to help them be even better at their jobs. That's what I hope to do for cyber professionals. So my path to this conference and engaging more with cyber, in addition to that research I was kind of doing with my husband and on my own, I was lucky enough to interview a lot of senior analysts, CISOs, founders across the spectrum in cyber. And I was asking them about their path to leadership and what skills they thought were important in getting them to where they were. It was really eye-opening. The conversations were pretty interesting. And I ended up finding that there was definitely a deficit in leadership development. And you'll remember earlier on our very first keynote, mentorship being really important. Aside from that, there really wasn't a whole lot out there. And people were clamoring and saying we really need more of it. So I began working on solutions specifically targeted to cyber and to break the norms of that traditional leadership development, which if any of you have ever taken some standard training, it can be useless or boring and just really doesn't always move the needle, right? So I wanted to shake those things up with the solutions I put together. So today I'm going to bring my research, professional experience, and then more recent data around the workplace today from Gartner and SHRM and others into this creed, right? So what do we need to do now? That's what we'll focus on. So that's why I'm here, but why? Why are more cyber professionals seeking out coaching? Why are more organizations looking for leadership development? And why should you even care about building a leadership creed? Many of you have seen statistics like this, or maybe you've even felt the impacts of severe stress or burnout in your own roles. I work with healthcare as well, healthcare professionals, and was shocked to see that cyber is in the top 5 most stressed and burned out professions right alongside your healthcare professionals. So maybe you don't feel burned out, but you've felt the strain of retaining talent on your team, with your peers. And I've coached several professionals who are really struggling with an overloaded plate, right? They've got too much work on their shoulders because there are empty positions. There are open roles on the team and a lot of work to get done. With such a talent shortage in cyber, retaining top talent is critical. Companies, if you haven't been out and around, are throwing out some pretty high salaries in some cases or big bonuses to lure talent away from, they're happily employed. So it's not like these are people out in the job market looking for a job. They're going after people who already have positions. So it's hard to keep your talent. What is really becoming a differentiator is the culture of your organization and how your managers are treating their people. I've seen some cyber professionals leave for more money, and I can use kind of GuidePoint as an example here. People get lured away, they go for the money, and they boomerang right back to GuidePoint. They'd rather take the salary they had before they left and work in a healthy environment than to take those big dollars at a place that's not as healthy. Excuse me. So there are also alarming predictions about turnover and people leaving the field altogether. That was shocking for me, to think that we're already short on talent and now people might leave the profession. Please don't. I could not believe that. So I loved, again, Paul's keynote yesterday and how he touted the importance of mentorship, but what else are we gonna do to support our professionals, to keep them engaged, to make them want to continue their work? The last and really important point here is the shocking data that indicated a quickly increasing area for cyber incidents is human failure. So of course, we know insider threat, right? That's a big part of it, but the new data is pointing to human threats that include stressed, overworked, or unskilled cyber professionals, missing key data, making mistakes, which result in successful attacks. So to keep up with threat actors, cyber professionals will need to increase their technical skills and those softer skills, including building relationships, better managing your stress, communication, critical thinking, and all of that. All right, so those are some powerful stats for the cyber industry, but what does that mean to you? Why should you even bother to do some of this work? And it is work to develop yourself. It doesn't just happen sitting in a talk or going to a class or reading an article, right? So building leadership and communication skills will definitely support you in a stronger and more productive set of relationships at work and outside of work. And these skills, what I love about them is they are highly transferable. So if you're building your leadership skills, you're gonna see increased success in other aspects of your life as well, right? So it could be your church community or a sports group or your family. They transfer. The other place they transfer, different companies, different roles that you haven't had yet or that you want to have. So ultimately, these skills really help you feel better at work. If you're better at all of these things, you're gonna feel better at work. There's also obviously research to support that these skills help you get better outcomes, increased productivity, creativity, problem solving. You're better at stress management and dealing with change. One other interesting benefit is that you're gonna need it to stay relevant. When you look at technology and all the changes, the fast changes we've got, you're gonna need to use the higher order thinking skills and the softer skills to remain relevant and successful in the business. And lastly, and importantly, I think for a lot of us, is research tells us that you are more likely to be hired, remain employed, be promoted, and make a higher salary than you would if you weren't as successful in these skills. So while developing yourselves work, it's really worth it if you think about your own, where you're going and what you can get from it. All right, so it's no wonder we need a new leadership creed. When you think about everything that's happened and you think about all these skills and the statistics that we looked at, we definitely need a new creed. It won't be as strict as the Death Watch tribe or the Mandalorians, but we should think through guiding principles that cyber professionals are going to need for our drastically changed and fast-changing world. So some of these skills and behaviors I share may seem familiar. Matter of fact, you may have heard some this morning, right, in the keynote speech. But it's important that all of these principles be applied in the context of the very different world and workplace we have today. So if you feel like you've got leadership pretty much figured out, but you haven't significantly changed what you've done, what you do in the last 3 years, you likely have some work to do to remain effective as a leader. So we're going to take a look at 5 core areas that cyber professionals should develop right away. Now you'll see, again, some of the things that Andy talked about this morning are kind of layered in here. And I want everyone here to know that we don't need to be perfect in every facet we cover today. What I'm hoping you guys will do in the audience is think about where you are with the skills we talk about and choose just one small thing you can do differently and apply it at work. That's it. So when I'm talking about all this stuff, I don't want you going, oh my God, like I have all this stuff to develop. No, you don't. Start with what resonates with you and take one little step at a time. All right, so let's jump in to the first one, moving from me to we. So in season 1, Mando, or Din Djarin, I'll probably switch around a lot as I talk about him. He's a lone bounty hunter, and he transitions from working in that state of me to working as we when he connects with Baby Yoda, Grogu. Again, I'll probably mix those names around. And he also teams up with others along the way. So to effectively make this shift from me to we need to start with the old golden rule. Does anybody remember what that is? Yes, treat others as you want to be treated. That comes from a place of me. I'm going to do what I want to do, right? And I want others to do what I want to do. So we need to change that mentality, and we're going to need something stronger than gold to do it. So I propose we follow the Beskar rule instead. The Beskar rule, also known as the Platinum Rule for any of non-Star Wars folks here, says that we should treat others the way they want to be treated. It's really an important distinction. It sounds pretty simple, but instead of treating people as I want to be treated, I need to think through what they want, meet them where they are, and treat them how they want to be treated. And that is coming from a place of we. Make sense? Cool. All right, so to dive in a little bit more, right? We got a couple points here. Things up top, right? Taking time to understand others. Things are moving fast in your day-to-day work, and you may be working remote or have more dispersed teams than maybe you did prior to the pandemic. So taking time to get to know others and what drives them may seem like a big waste of time, especially as busy as you are. It might even seem too difficult if you're in a new working environment or you have that dispersed team. But it's not. There are new communication tools out there, along with a real increased expectation that we care and put more energy and effort into the people we work with. Have any of you had a relationship with a person or even a pet or a plant that you didn't really jive with at first, but when you got to know them a little bit better, all kinds of cool things happen? Yeah, I call it the bobblehead vote. I'm seeing that. Yep, good. So the same is true at work. You'll do better with your own job and get more out of your peers or your employees. And better, you'll foster a culture that top talent will end up seeking out, right? So you end up with a stronger team if you are taking the time to understand what everybody needs and what makes them tick. To understand others, it's also important to understand yourself. I don't know that we do that enough. Really reflect on what makes us tick. We go out, we react, right? Andy talked about that this morning. So it's important for you to really critically evaluate your strengths, your weaknesses, your preferences, pet peeves you might have, and consider your thinking and communicating and problem-solving style. Knowing yourself is going to strengthen your ability to connect meaningfully with others. You'll more easily see the value that other people are bringing to the table, and you'll better be able to manage yourself during tough times if you're really paying attention to what makes you tick. The last key point here in making that move from me to we is focusing more on outcomes. So for those of you who are individual contributors, we need to look beyond our own work and what's required of just our role. We need to understand the broader goals and the outcomes of our team and our organization. So taking that minute to sort of shift perspective and look at how your work impacts the people around you will really help you actually stay more engaged at work. And it may lead to new ideas and ways of working that you hadn't even considered before. So when you look out and look up and connect to those broader outcomes, that problem person, which some of us have at work, that seems like they're always getting in your way or trying to make your job hard, they become more tolerable because you see how their work and their motives are driving their actions and why it makes sense to the broader business. So they may still be annoying, but you won't be as triggered when you step out of that me viewpoint. For those of us who are people managers, focusing on outcomes, we definitely got to get better at that too. The days of cheeks and seats, how long your IM has been green, what time of day you are sending emails or work products out through email, that's over. It can be really tough, though, to trust teammates or peers or direct reports or bosses. But if we focus on the outcomes and less on the when or the where or the how that work is getting done, we're going to make room for more connection, more innovation, and stronger results from everyone. Managers, one last thing you're going to need to do is probably reassess workload. So if you have somebody on one end of the spectrum that seems really underwater and close to burnout, or on the other end, you can't really get a hold of them and you're sure they're gaming all day, have some coaching conversations. Check in, see what's going on, and then adjust the workload on your team. You're making sure that whole time that the outcomes you're asking for make sense to the needs of the business. So Mando definitely takes on a lot of side quests in the series, but he lets the strengths of others shine, and he cares most about successful outcomes. One other cool thing he does is he never loses sight of the mission, and we're going to talk about that a little later. So here are a couple of examples from the show, right? Mando is a solitary and somewhat antisocial bounty hunter who's really only concerned with himself and getting the bounty, collecting his bounty. That is until he meets the child. So at the tender age of 50, baby Yoda is an orphan, just like Mando. He shifts from me to we as he decides to save the child from Moff Gideon and his scientists. Later, he cares so much that he lets go of Grogu, knowing that being with the Jedi is what's most important. And ultimately, they reunite and become a clan, taking the seal of the Mudhorn. So definitely, he moves from an isolated bounty hunter to a we with sweet Grogu. Mando also takes time to understand Bo-Katan Kryze, and she takes time to understand him. In the beginning, Bo-Katan dismisses him for being part of an extremist cult. And he distrusts her greatly because she takes off her helmet, she changes the plan in the middle of an attack. But through various encounters, they build trust. And although they have numerous differences, they come to each other's aid, show mutual respect, and end up teaming up to unite all Mandalorians. We also see the Mandalorian taking time to understand others as he builds relationships with the armorer, with Queel, the Ugnaught he trusted deeply in season 1. And he takes a we approach and builds valuable alliances with other characters as well. So Cobb Vanth, Pele Moto, Greef Karga, Cara Dune, IG-11 we'll talk more about, and Ahsoka. He really demonstrates this me to we principle pretty well. So let's talk more about the importance of alliances in number 2, form alliances. The best alliances are diverse and created through empathy. These skills have been made more important in recent years, and you may have heard about that, right? You're hearing a lot about diversity, you're hearing a lot about empathy. Many employees are expecting you to understand and care about their unique needs and acknowledge their experiences and beliefs at work. Employees may want you to know what holidays matter to them, if they're taking care of a sick child or relative, or any number of other life aspects that they care about. Honoring diversity and demonstrating empathy is key. So let's break that down a little bit more. Jon Favreau actually is a great example here. He and Filoni created a diverse team of directors for the series and named them the Magnificent Seven, which was perfectly fitting for a space western. While they were all united with a shared love of Star Wars, they brought their unique styles and strengths to the work. The collaborative approach they used and the diversity of experience challenged and inspired each director to a level of excellence they said they never would have been able to achieve on their own. Cyber is still a relatively young industry, so building strong relationships will be important to the growth and maturity of the profession. So how can y'all build alliances effectively? I use this experience, beliefs, actions, sorry. This experience, beliefs, and actions model quite a bit when I'm helping people to move forward more quickly, to relate with others, and understand someone else. It's simple, but it's pretty powerful. So we start with experiences, the lived experiences, like how we grew up, the values our caregivers taught us, or life events, everything from touching a hot stove and knowing not to do that again, breaking up with a significant other, or having a warlord come in and storm your neighborhood. Big and small, the experiences we have as we live, along with our innate qualities too, those shape our belief system. So what we believe then drives how we show up, what actions we take, how we react in the world. Din Djarin, again, is a good example here because he has that brutal early experiences when droids kill his parents. So that experience, and likely others he may have had as a young person, really created his belief that droids are not to be trusted and should be avoided or destroyed. This belief drives his actions in the show time and again. He has to work to push past this in the case of IG-11, for instance, but he reverts back in some ways when he investigates the rogue droids in season 3. So our lived experiences are core to how we show up in the world, and understanding that is true for every single one of us and can help us to pause and be more patient and more tolerant, and adopt a mindset of curiosity that will expedite true alliances and more meaningful relationships. Have y'all heard of quiet quitting, the Great Resignation? Yeah, I'm seeing that. So those are reflective of the fact that many people want to feel that sense of connection at work. They also want to bring their whole selves. You guys have probably heard that too, right? They want to be able to bring their whole selves to work. So that leave it at the door mentality is another thing that is essentially gone. So all of us, leaders at all levels, need to not just respect, but to value those individual perspectives, experiences, and contributions. To do that, we need to account for our biases, and we need to take deliberate action to push through discomfort for the broader good at work. And you guys, we all have biases. It's part of being human. And again, our experiences somewhat form those things. Our new world, though, and our new workplace demand that we're more aware of them and that we account for those biases as we make decisions, hold important meetings, and work with others. So if you're considering the experiences, beliefs, actions of others and weighing in your biases, you're much closer to being able to truly value the differences you see in people you work with. Finding the value that each person brings not only helps them to trust you and feel good about themselves, but it will help you get the results you're after and help you achieve more than you probably thought possible, just like the Magnificent Seven. Fully embracing this and learning how to be flexible in your own preferences is really going to be what helps you most. We mentioned knowing yourself in the last principle, but here's where you need to stretch to take what you know about yourself and the others around you and flex or be flexible in your approach with them. Communicating in a way that the other person feels comfortable with allows you to get more done and to ensure you learn and grow in the process. It's not a Jedi mind trick or manipulation. It's psychology, neuroscience, and sociology. So knowing more about the people you work with are going to help you better understand how to inspire and challenge them too. Keep in mind what's inspirational to one person could be really annoying to someone else. So do your best to practice that best car rule in this case. So here are our Mandalorian examples for this one, which are pretty cool. He definitely shows alliances throughout the entire series. And he's pretty skilled at that best car rule. He adjusts his approach, he respects the gifts of others, he admits his biases, and he naturally inspires and challenges others. The first example here shows Din Djarin brokering peace between Cobb Vanth, the other inhabitants of Mos Pelgo, and the Tusken Raiders. He starts off with using what he knows about the Sand People and puts their animal companions at ease. I don't know if you remember this, but Vance was freaked out and ready to shoot. But the Mandalorian approaches the animal, diffuses the tension, and opens dialogue with the Tusken Raiders in the first meeting. Thankfully, he speaks their language, which helps, and unites both sides around the common cause of killing the Krayt Dragon. At night, the old feud, though, flares again, and Mando, with the help of his badass flamethrower, diffuses the situation again. This event further solidifies his relationships with both sides and results in a win-win-win. The creature's blown to bits and Boba Fett's armor is returned. Another great example I like is really kind of more about how he considers his bias and values diversity and how he flexes his style. And that comes when Bo-Katan and Din Djarin help Jack Black and Lizzo with malfunctioning droids. Din Djarin repeats his feelings about droids multiple times in the episode, right? We know he's got a bias there. But he uses restraint when he enters the droid bar and hears more about the planet's attempts to reform droids instead of send them to scrap. So maybe his experience with IG-11 earlier changed his beliefs enough that his actions were a little more tempered? Maybe, I don't know. In a short scene, and one that I really loved, they go to speak with the Ugnaughts. We know they're hardworking problem solvers, droid smiths. Bo-Katan charges in there with authority and even a little bit of condescension, and she demands their help. And they don't move. They don't even stop what they're doing when she charges in that way. Mando then speaks in their preferred style, so that I have spoken comes from the Ugnaughts. And he then appeals to their values, too, when he says he knows they're hardworking and that their work is not responsible for the droid problems. So with his skillful communication, the Ugnaughts sit down, have the discussion, and turn over a device that shows them where the droids they seek really are. Mando and IG-11 exemplify this principle for sure in forming alliances. So that's the last one, and I think a big one, a powerful one. So Mando, again, you guys know this, right, is forced to overcome his bias. He's going to integrate new experiences and alter, hopefully, his beliefs and his actions. And then he also has to respect the differences of a team comprised of IG-11, who's reformed, Greef Karga, and Cara Dune. So it starts with that kind of desperate gun battle, and IG-11 is ready to self-destruct because he doesn't want to be captured. Somehow, Mando talks him out of it, and they win. When they go in, though, to get the bounty and find that it is the adorable baby Yoda, Mando has pause at that point. He tries to stop IG-11 from shooting the child, and then realizes that he can't override the bot in this case, right, or the droid. He can't override him, and he shoots him in the head. So after a lot of reform and a lot of work from Queel, he reprograms IG-11 to serve as a nanny and a protector for the child instead. So Mando still distrusts him, but IG-11 fights to protect the child, gets him to safety, saves Mando's life after Moff Gideon attacks, and ultimately sacrifices himself for the good of the child and the group. We see that Greef Karga and Cara Dune add their skills to this adventure as well. And I think some of those experiences really do start to change some of his beliefs. He's still pretty hardcore anti-droid, though. All right, number 3 in our creed is to be determined. This is our principle where we talk about grit. Grit was talked a lot about 6 to 10 years ago, but really I feel like in some cases it got used to justify really long hours and some insane workloads, abusive workplace relationships. So a lot of people stepped away from championing grit as a positive leadership trait. With world changes, though, and a fierce new generation in the workplace, we started seeing changes in more work-life balance, more reasonable schedules, and workloads in some cases, better time off and benefits, all being advocated for in a way that we had never done it before. All of that was great and overdue. but we may have tipped the scale a little bit too far. You'll see, if you do any kind of Google search, you'll see articles and memes and inspirational quotes that are like, just leave. Like, if you don't have to take it, just walk out. We absolutely should leave a toxic environment, 100%. But I believe we need a little bit of a better balance. I don't think we should walk away to the point where we don't ever persevere or show grit or determination in our work. If we do that, we're going to lose out on amazing innovations or incredible successes that really need to be fought for and won. So in addition to balancing those things, we've really got to have that learning mindset. So you guys really got to start, if you're not already, thinking through what you're going to be building in a technical and a soft skill perspective, but doing it with humility. So having confidence in your skills and abilities, that's great. But overconfidence or arrogance can kill productivity, kill engagement, drive peers or employees away. Humility is more important in leadership today because changes are coming faster and faster and faster, and we need to adopt different mindsets. If we don't have humility, especially concerning our skills, knowledge, and expertise, we're going to fall behind the hackers, behind technology advancements, behind others at work, and more. So if we stay humble and never get complacent with our current set of skills and our current expertise, we're going to remain open and able to face the challenges today and hopefully tomorrow. So in addition to continuously building your technical skills and upskilling, remember that teaching others and sharing your experience makes room for you to move to new and more interesting work. There's no room for information hoarding or feeling threatened by the skills of another in cyber. If someone's more skilled than you, learn from them. Another important component to determination is appropriately leveraging tools and resources. So again, you might have people who want to try every hot new tool, but they never really adopt any of them. Or you could have somebody who is really over-reliant on a tool that is antiquated. It may have made them successful before, but it's actually going to get in their way with where work is heading today. How are you mastering new tools, and what other tools might you have access to in your workplace that you can add to your bag of tricks? Think about it. When you get back to work, back to your environment, think about what else you could start to integrate, and be determined, right? Be consistent, stick with a tool, learn how to use it, and really you'll be able to wield that tool with great success. I also want to remind you, build in some of the soft stuff too, right? Build in some of the skills that you need for this creed, and that goes into your bag of tricks as well. So our main protagonist absolutely shows determination the whole time. This first example, he's going to give up. He's supposed to ride this blurg, and Quill's kind of training him and coaching him, and he is not having it. He wants a speeder or something else. But Quill reminds them that his people have rode the mythosaur, and surely he should be able to tame this foal. So what I like about this example is the Mandalorian reapproaches the animal with renewed determination and compassion. With a really gentle touch, he connects with the foal, and that's what helps him succeed in training it, or taming it. The Mandalorian's also really awesome at using his tools. I think that's probably why a lot of us like to watch that show. He's great with the right tool at the right time. Not only does he use the N1 fighter and is gone, and the weapon's pictured here, but he leverages tools around him to be successful as well. We see him learn and use new tools, even if temporarily, like the Beskar spear, explosives, and of course the dark saber. All right, this last one is an example that he's kind of nuts. He's so determined. He doesn't want to be an apostate, so he goes through crazy amounts of stuff, finding text for how he can be readmitted, tries to get IG-11 remade. He fights a cyborg, overcomes what he thinks is toxic air. I don't know that he really fights that cyborg, though. Bo-Katan saves him. Then we get so excited because he's finally at the living waters, and he darn near drowns, and Bo-Katan has to save him again. So a little bit of determination, or a lot of determination, and a little bit of help from friends, and he's once again accepted by his tribe. All right, 4 is taking off the mask. So this one's a little tough, right? Vulnerability is a requirement for success now. How's that make y'all feel? It makes you feel good? Good. I love that. Some people might feel uncomfortable or nauseous to think about that, right? I promise vulnerability does not mean you need to wear your heart on your sleeve or share your deep, dark secrets, okay? Vulnerability shows up when you admit when you've done something wrong, or when you ask for feedback, or when you take that time to reflect on yourself and your own strengths. They choose transparency over control, relationships over hierarchies, and well-being over productivity. And that's sometimes a hard one. So again, think about the traits of vulnerability that you already show at work today. Like Din Djarin, people who do this well are guided by their values and stay true to those principles. They're often skilled in knowing their limits, admitting mistakes, rewarding or recognizing a job well done. They're often humble, they ask for help, and they apologize when needed. Hopefully you see how you already are demonstrating some vulnerability in the workplace. Done right, vulnerability invites everyone to take off their masks and to connect and inspire and collaborate and innovate all together. Can you guys sense when someone's fake or they seem to be imitating somebody else? Like they just don't seem real, right? Kind of like a car salesy type of thing. That's inauthenticity. What I want you to remember about applying these skills is you've got to do them in a way that's authentic to you, or it's never going to work. In the new leadership creed, knowing your limits and admitting your failures is key. This is another good question for you guys. Has anybody moved into a different role, and as you started focusing on that role, you fell behind in a technical area that you once were really good at? Yeah, right? Seeing some of that. That can be hard, right? Especially at first. If you loved it or you got lots of kudos for doing it, it's hard that you're not kind of as expert as you used to be. You might feel accomplished and happy to have moved on. Either way, though, admitting where your limits are in that knowledge and skill and empowering the technical experts around you to share their knowledge is going to enhance your abilities, the engagement and success of the work, and so on. Feedback we've talked about as well, and that is incredibly important. I think a lot of people say they love feedback, but what they love is the, oh my gosh, you did so good, right? Make sure you are really ready, and this is, again, a skill you can develop, really ready to accept some feedback, and then make sure that you take action on it. Feedback and no action as a result of that feedback can actually spin out in the wrong direction, cause distrust, hurt productivity, and people will stop giving you feedback or even trying to help you at all. One really great thing I've seen also in terms of vulnerability and taking off the mask in cyber is there are a lot of rewards and recognition for good work in the industry. I've seen a lot of people doing that right. So keep doing it. Encouragement and support go a really long way in the workplace, not just on a professional level, but on a personal level too, really. All right, so quick examples here. Once again, I'm going to show you IG-11, right? He took his mask off for IG-11. He's got a mortal wound, okay? The guy won't take his mask off even though he's going to die. IG-11 refuses and continues to help him. So he still maintains, essentially, he maintains his integrity with the mask, but he takes it off and shows vulnerability and gets help when IG-11 says, no, I'm not a living thing, so you're not actually breaking your creed. All right, the other one is sort of the dark saber, shows his limits and knowing that somebody else is stronger at something, right? He's really not good with that dark saber, even hurts himself with it. And he really does honor Bo-Katan's experience and feels that she's the right person for the job. All right, so the last one is protect the child. This one is super simple. It takes laser focus on your mission to be successful. Research shows us that people who were successful over the last 3 years showed up with a lot of these traits, but they always also remembered the mission. They stayed connected to what was most important. Things can get hectic and really overwhelming at times, particularly for you as cyber leaders. But at all levels, we have to balance needs with shifting priorities, pick up projects, pivot to the next attack, and balance. There is such a need for what you do, and it's critically important work. So keeping sight of that will ensure you remain at your best and you fend off potential burnout. It may even help you to lift others who have lost sight of the mission in all the chaos. You most certainly are doing incredible things in every facet of cyber, even in those monotonous moments, or as my husband says, the less sexy parts of cyber. All right, so I have one more quick thing, but I wanted to make sure that I left a tiny bit of time. I think, what do I have, like a minute or two? Oh, I only got 2 minutes for questions. So what I will do instead of questions is I will hang around here and out in the hallway. Would love to hear from you about those questions. But again, I'm going to encourage you to take some action today. And with that, I'm offering a digital resource to help out. It's got worksheets and aids to help you kind of refine your development goals and put them into practice. If that kind of thing is not for you, I encourage you to take action and hold yourself accountable to develop skills. Set some reminders on your phone, block some time on your calendar, and commit time for your own professional development. You'll be surprised at the successes you're going to see, even with just the slightest incremental change in what you do in the workplace. So with that, please be sure to get in touch with me. I have tons of resources on all of these different things, and I love to connect you with resources or people or tools that can help you grow. Thanks so much for your time and attention today, and I wish you all much success in this important work. Thank you.